Long before the pyramids of Egypt rose from the sands, before the Great Wall traced its path across China, a remarkable people in the land between two great rivers laid the foundations for urban life as we know it. This was Sumer, cradle of civilization, birthplace of cities, and home to some of humanity's earliest innovations. The story of the Sumerians is the story of how wandering bands of hunter-gatherers settled, built, created, and dreamed, turning mud and reeds into mighty city-states and myth into written history. Around 4500 BCE, the rich alluvial plains of southern Mesopotamia, modern-day southern Iraq, drew people with their promise of abundant crops. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers, flowing from distant mountains, brought both life-giving water and destructive floods. Here, amidst unpredictable nature, the Sumerians learned to harness the power of irrigation. They dug canals, ditches, and levees, transforming the land into a patchwork of fertile fields. Wheat, barley, and dates flourished, supporting growing populations and freeing some from the daily toil of subsistence. This agricultural surplus was the spark, the beginning of something new. As villages grew, the Sumerians began to cluster into larger settlements. By around 3500 BCE, cities rose: Uruk, Eridu, Lagash, Ur, and Nippur, each a self-contained world with its own walls, temples, and rulers. Uruk, often called the first true city, may have boasted as many as 40,000 residents at its height, a bustling metropolis by ancient standards. These cities were not just collections of homes. They were centers of trade, religion, administration, and culture, urban life in its earliest form. At the heart of every Sumerian city stood the Ziggurat, a towering stepped temple built of mud brick, reaching skyward in honor of the gods. The Sumerians were deeply spiritual, believing their cities belonged to divine patrons: Inanna in Uruk, Enlil in Nippur, Nana in Ur. The priests who served these deities wielded immense power, overseeing rituals, managing temple lands, and advising rulers. Religion and government were intertwined, and the temple was both a house of worship and a center of economic life, employing craftsmen, farmers, and scribes. But the Sumerians' most enduring legacies may be written in the very script they invented. Around 3200 BCE, they developed cuneiform, the world's first known writing system. At first, it was a means to keep accounts: lists of sheep, measures of grain, records of trades. Wedge-shaped marks pressed into soft clay tablets soon evolved into a flexible tool for recording myths, hymns, laws, and even personal letters. With writing, the Sumerians stepped out of prehistory and into the realm of recorded memory, allowing their voices to echo down through the millennia. The invention of writing transformed Sumerian society. Scribes became a new class, trained in temple schools and entrusted with the secrets of literacy. Kings issued decrees, merchants recorded transactions, and storytellers preserved epic tales like the adventures of Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk. Through cuneiform, the Sumerians told their stories, codified their laws, and passed on their wisdom. Yet Sumerian cities were not peaceful utopias. Competition for land and water often led to conflict. City fought against city, and sometimes kings sought to expand their power by conquest. The Sumerians developed some of the earliest forms of organized government. Councils of elders advised rulers, and assemblies of citizens, at least among the free male population, could have a voice in major decisions. Over time, however, kingship became more centralized. Great Lugal, or big men, emerged, claiming divine sanction and ruling over multiple cities. Sumerian society was complex and stratified. At the top were the kings and priests, followed by a class of officials, scribes and merchants, skilled craftsmen, potters, metalworkers, weavers, produced goods for local use and for trade. Below them were farmers and laborers, whose work sustained the cities. Slavery existed, though it was often the result of debt or war, rather than a hereditary condition. The Sumerians were inventors and innovators. Besides writing and irrigation, they developed the wheel, first for pottery and then for carts and chariots. They built sturdy boats to navigate the rivers and canals, and their merchants traded as far afield as the Indus Valley, Anatolia, and the Persian Gulf, exchanging textiles and grain for precious metals, timber, and exotic goods. Mathematics flourished. They devised a system based on the number 60, which influences our timekeeping and geometry to this day. They tracked the stars, mapped constellations, and created lunar calendars to guide their festivals and planting seasons. Sumerian art and architecture reflected their beliefs and environment. They crafted intricate jewelry from gold and lapis lazuli, carved cylinder seals used to stamp personal marks on clay, and depicted gods and worshippers in statues with wide, attentive eyes. Their temples, palaces, and city walls were feats of engineering, constructed from humble mud brick, yet designed to endure. The Sumerians' religious worldview was rich and complex. They saw the universe as governed by a pantheon of powerful, sometimes capricious gods, each with their own domains and personalities. Human beings, they believed, were created to serve the gods, to provide offerings and maintain the divine order. Life was uncertain, subject to the whims of fate and nature, and the afterlife was a shadowy existence in the netherworld. Yet the Sumerians found meaning in ritual, in community, and in the pursuit of wisdom. One of the most remarkable achievements of Sumerian civilization was their legal tradition. The earliest known law codes, predating even the famous Code of Hammurabi, were written in Sumer. These laws sought to regulate everyday life, property, marriage, contracts, and even punishments for various offenses. Justice was both a divine and human concern, and the king was seen as the guardian of fairness and order. Sumerian literature is among the oldest in the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh, with its themes of friendship, mortality, and the search for meaning, still resonates today. In this tale, the hero king journeys across the world, confronts gods and monsters, and ultimately learns that immortality is not for mortals. Other texts offer hymns to the gods, lamentations for lost cities, proverbs, and wisdom literature, glimpses into the hopes, fears, and aspirations of a people long gone. Despite their achievements, Sumerian civilization was not eternal. By around 2000 BCE, internal strife and pressures from neighboring peoples, most notably the Akkadians from the north, brought change. The Akkadian Empire, under Sargon the Great, conquered Sumer and blended its culture with that of its conquerors. Later, the rise of Babylon and other powers would further absorb and transform Sumerian traditions. Yet the Sumerians' legacy endured, their language persisting as a sacred tongue, their innovations forming the bedrock for later Mesopotamian civilizations and, ultimately, for the world. The impact of Sumerian civilization cannot be overstated. They gave humanity the city, the idea of people living together in organized, complex communities, governed by rules, guided by shared beliefs, and bound by economic and social ties. Their writing system unlocked the possibility of history, literature, and law. Their technological and scientific advances set the stage for centuries of progress. Even today, echoes of Sumer ring in our words, our numbers, and our stories. What drove the Sumerians to build? Was it necessity? The challenge of taming an unpredictable land? Was it faith? The desire to serve and honor the gods? Was it ambition? The drive for power and prestige? Perhaps it was all these things and more. A uniquely human mix of hope, fear, creativity, and resilience. The story of the Sumerians is not just a tale of ancient kings and temples. It is the story of us, of how human beings learn to live together, to think beyond the needs of the day, to imagine, to remember, and to aspire. Their journey from mud huts to mighty cities, from spoken word to written history, marks one of the great turning points in the human story. In the ruins of Uruk and Ur, in the silent tablets of Cuneiform, the Sumerians speak to us across 5,000 years. They remind us that civilization is both fragile and enduring, built on the dreams and labor of countless generations. They show us that our greatest achievements begin with small steps, a field irrigated, a story written, a city built from mud and hope. As we look back at the dawn of urban life, we see ourselves reflected in the Sumerians' struggles and triumphs. Their legacy is not just in monuments or inventions, but in the very idea that people, together, can shape their world. The Sumerians were the first to light the flame of civilization. That flame still burns, illuminating the path from the ancient past to the future we continue to build.